Morning, guys. It's me, it's Gav Mack, and I'm here to tell you about everything that happened last night in the Euros. Now, I haven't got anyone else with me at the moment because everybody's still asleep after watching that awful bore fest between England and Scotland. So why don't we start there and let's have a talk about it and let's just try and break down what the hell happened. Because where were this wonderful England that did everything special and wonderful against Croatia? They were nowhere to be seen. England they made two changes. They bought in Luke Shaw and they bought in Reece James. And I understand why they bought in Reece James. It made a lot of sense because Scotland's threat on the left hand side is very strong. Let's be real. They've got McTominay, not McTominay, sorry, McTominay's playing centre half. We'll talk about him in a second. They've got Robertson and Tierney on the left hand side. So having someone like Reece James to pin them back makes a hell of a lot of sense. However, England are a top side, ranked very highly in the FIFA rankings, in comparison to Scotland, who haven't made it to a major tournament since 1998 and shouldn't really be that much of a threat. Why are you playing two holding midfielders? Now, Calvin Phillips is technically undroppable after what happened on Sunday. And Declan Rice, he is the guy. He is meant to be the linchpin. But you've got to drop one of them. There's multiple opportunities for change. Now, this game could have been a hell of a lot different if John Stones' header went in the first half. And also, Mason Mount had a couple of opportunities. But don't get it twisted. Scotland also had some real strong opportunities to score. So, yeah, very disappointing, if I'm honest, from the England point of view. But we're a neutral channel. So let's talk about Scotland. I thought Scotland were brilliant. I thought they were. Imagine if Scotland had a lethal striker, where they would be and what they would be doing. McTominay played on the right-hand side of a back three, which surprised me quite a bit because normally he plays in the central role. So therefore, if he wants to, he could drag the ball out and he could get involved in midfield play. But didn't need to because, Grant Hanley was doing everything at the back there. Kieran Tierney, I thought, had a fantastic game. O'Donnell, who I cussed out in every preview because of his performance against Czech Republic, he was phenomenal down that right-hand side. And how many times did we see Luke Shaw get beyond the halfway line? I can only recall twice where he made meaningful runs into the opposition half. So, Scotland have a lot to be proud of there. And I would also say that it's going to be a big game against Croatia. It's not going to be a walkover as many people would have thought before the tournament started. It's a winner-takes-all situation, and we'll talk about Croatia in a moment. But Scotland have every reason to be super proud of themselves yesterday, and yeah, fair play to them. Completely fair play to them. So that was one part of Group D. Before we move on, I can't see what that emoji says, so let's move on. Right, okay. Croatia versus Czech Republic. Now, I had to go back and watch the highlights of this in the second half because I live in a village and we had a power cut in the second half. So I missed Peris-Schick's goal as it happened and I had to go back to watch it. It's the only bit of game time that I've missed in the Euros this season. Full game time anyway. Like the other night, hay fever killed me and I was in bed at 4 o'clock, but I was able to go back and watch those games as full. So anyway, less about my life story. Croatia versus Czech Republic. Now, this was, I kind of liked this game. I did like this game. I'm not going to lie. Czech Republic, they took the lead in with about 8 minutes to go of the first half with probably the most controversial situation that's happened in the European Championship so far this season. Corners whipped in. Dejan Lovren leaps up to get this header. I thought it was a nice, clean header. Used his arms as leverage. Eyes on the ball the whole time. No drama, no issues. But Peris-Schick's on the floor and he's bleeding. So I think the referee has used, in a way, you could argue refereeing common sense. And if you have been a referee or understand refereeing, not necessarily the laws of the game, but understand refereeing, it is easy to give this decision. But from a non-referee's point of view and from a fan's point of view, it's a shocking decision. But he's given the penalty after consulting VAR. Now, the awkward situation is that Peris-Schick was bleeding. His shirt was white, and not anymore. It was now red. But he was allowed to take the penalty. Whereas we only just saw a couple of days before the situation in the Ukraine versus North Macedonia game where Goran Pandev was injured and he's normally the penalty taker and he wasn't able to take the penalty because he was receiving treatment. So I'm not quite sure how that has happened, but it was allowed to happen. Peris-Schick dispatched the penalty beautifully. It was a lovely penalty. Sent the keeper the wrong way. It literally hit the bottom corner of the back of the goal. Like it was perfect. Really good penalty. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. But after this video, of course. And then the equaliser came from Peris-Schick, who I haven't got a fantasy team. I only do NFL fantasy teams. So my friend is not really that much into football. Daryl, he's a good guy, but not really into football. Like you are allowed to be like that. And he said, Gav, can you help me out with my fantasy team? I was like, put this in, put that in. I'm not quite sure, whatever. And the first round of fixtures, I had Peris-Schick in it for him. And I took him out. Because I didn't think he was going to perform. And then he scores that. Now, keeper, little bit to blame. I think Peris-Schick, he hit that nicely. One of those rocket of the arse situations that we saw. We saw it yesterday in the can't remember what game it was now. There's so many games on going on, but we've seen it already, and we've seen it again. And Czech Republic, they could have guaranteed qualification, but they were not to know that England were going to fluff their lines against a resilient Scotland. So this game has now left them in a strong position. It's England versus Czech Republic on Tuesday. And the winner tops the group. I'd be interested to see which way they go, whether either one tries to pussy out of it a little bit because of the level of opposition that they could be facing in the following in the last 16. So it'd be very interesting to see what goes on there. But Croatia, they've disappointed, haven't they? Croatia, they got to the final, of course, of the World Cup. They've been on a forward movement, high trajectory level, and they are not performing to the levels that they were before. Yes, Rakitic isn't playing there anymore. Modric is in his 70s now, but it doesn't stop them being a half decent side. And personnel wise, I think they're still pretty shiny. So they'll be very disappointed with themselves. And the other game that happened yesterday, which I thought was going to be awful, but it turned out to be all right, to be fair, was Sweden versus Slovakia. And the only goal of the game came from a Forsberg penalty. That was taken nicely as well. Keeper went the right way, Dubravka, and he was just hit with a lot of power, a lot of pace right into the corner. Really impressed. And the penalty came along because of Robin Kaiser, Palermo legend. Big fan of his, of course I am. And yeah, the first half, I think it was a case of let's feed each other out a little bit. I thought Slovakia were hoping that Sweden would play against them so they could try and hit them on the counter. But I think Sweden were trying to do the same thing. So there was a little bit of counterproductivity. But then second half, both teams need to come out a little bit more. We're going to see what happens with the Poland-Spain game later on today, of course, which will have giant ramifications on these two sides. So Sweden, they've got 4 points. Slovakia, they've got 4 points. So it's a must-win game in the Spain game. One player that stood out massively was Isaac. He won the best young player in La Liga this season, of course, as well. So yeah, very, very impressed by him. He's been linked with a number of big clubs and Arsenal. So we'll see what happens in City season, which normally happens during a World Cup or a Euros or Copa America as well. Someone who shines in the tournament, but probably isn't quite there yet. Ends up going for inflated money, but we'll see. We'll see what happens there for sure. So what was I going to say? Oh, the thing that I loved about this game also, because that first half was very touch and go. Who wants it? Who doesn't? The halftime show, if you want to call it that, by the BBC was absolutely phenomenal. It was like a karaoke session. Jack Grealish singing Robbie Williams, She's the One. He ain't actually got a bad voice, to be fair. We find out that Ashley Williams for his initiation, he had to do Sean Kingston, and he didn't know the words, and he started singing it. I was like, "Oh, hey, go on, son!" And then Alex Scott was like, "Oh yeah, I don't have to do it because I was captain. I was telling people what to do." So then they asked Micah Richards, who isn't Micah Richards, just the best pundit on TV right now. And no matter what mood you're in, he will put a smile on your face. And he told us that he had to do Usher, and he just started singing. I was like, "Oi, Micah Richards, mate! You've actually got a voice, you know." Oh my god, what was the song again? I can't, I'm not going to sing it. I'm not going to sing it. 7 o'clock on the dot. I'm going to jot up that one anyway. But yeah, I was very, very impressed by him. So yeah. But anyway, we digress. Let's talk about the games that are happening today. Hungary versus France at 2 p.m. That is going to be another home game, if you want to call it that, for Hungary. Then we've got the biggie, one of the biggest games of the tournament thus far, in the shape of Portugal versus Germany. That's at 5 o'clock, another home game, if you want to call it. That's in Munich. I'll say home game. It's only the 7th time they've played in Munich since the World Cup in 2006, which was hosted by Germany. So it's not familiar ground for Die Mannschaft, but we'll see what's happening there. And then Spain versus Poland, the crunch match in Group E. So mini predictions, of course. If you follow us on Twitter, you'll be able to go back and have a look at the match per day predictions that we tend to do. They're about a minute, 2 minutes long. We put them out anywhere between half hour and an hour before the game kicks off, unless it's my fault. I'm messing around and doing something, and I'm like, "Oh, forgot, my bad." But yes, so if you follow us on Twitter, follow all the guys on Twitter. Actually, I haven't got flows in there, but I'll tell you what. Let me put flows in there quick. But while I'm doing that, let's talk about the Hungary France game. Now, on paper, this is probably one of the most obvious games to win, but France have it in their locker to lose silly games or draw silly games, and I've just got a feeling that this one could be it. The stadium is going to be full. It's going to be in Hungary. That I thought Hungary were incredibly unlucky against Portugal earlier on in the tournament as well. So, you know, I'm still going with my head. I'm going with the France victory, and I reckon it's going to be like 3-0, maybe even 4-0. But Hungary will have something to say today, and we could see something remarkable happening, something crazy happening. So let's find out on that one. The other game, Portugal versus Germany. Now Germany have to come out and win this game. They have no choice but to do it because of the result against France. And if they could get at least a point, then if they could slap Hungary, well, that makes everything super interesting. And then Spain versus Poland. I'm going with a boring draw. I'm going with a 0-0 draw in that because Spain, great at retaining possession, but Jesus Christ, they're boring. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. But of course, follow it and subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/MAD Sports Network or Mad Sports Network, whichever one you prefer. And then follow us on the socials at MAD Sports Net, at GavMac23, at DevoLDN, at Away Day Show, at Chris the Collins, at _Laboron_tweets. So yeah, keep an eye out for the rest of our content, and we'll see you in the morning on the channel. Lovely.